So I posted a video a few days ago, and I have one question. Have any of you made a mistake that more than 45,000 people saw? And then I had a large portion of that 45,000 people tell you about that mistake over and over again? Because I have. That being said, instead of trying to defend the mistake and act like it didn't happen, I instead decided that not only was I going to redo the video, but I was going to take it one step further and go even more in depth than I previously had. Now, if you didn't see the last video and you just want me to talk the numbers, skip to the time shown on screen, because for the beginning of this video, I'm going to talk about the mistakes I made in the previous video. So to start, I assumed, which was my first mistake. My friends group and I have recently been interested in damage multipliers, how the buffs work, min-maxing the game, and the idea of boss melting with optimal loadouts. I assumed people would know that, but that was stupid of me to assume, because there's no way you could have known that. The second mistake I made was how I calculated the damage buffs and how they stack. I didn't get the math wrong per se, but instead I did the wrong kind of math. In Destiny 2, buffs are multiplicative, and my numbers were calculated as if they were additive. So while I did correctly add 1 and 1 and got 2, what I should have done is multiplied 1 and 1 to get 1. Third on my list of mistakes from that video was another assumption. I knew that the Basilisk, while a rapid fire like the EP shotgun, was bugged, preventing it from being full auto. The assumption I made, however, without testing, is that the difference in RPM wouldn't be as big as it actually is, which is something I will discuss in this video. The fourth mistake I made wasn't really a mistake. It was more a joke, or I guess a badly executed statement. I said that 53% of the community could get the Dead Open shotgun. I know that everyone could buy it for 50,000. It was more a hip for the time kind of statement. It was a bad choice. And then fifth on the list for mistakes was also not inherently a mistake, but a lot of people mention Hawthorne's Field Forge shotgun, Zenith of Its Kind, and Perfect Paradox. So while it could be considered a mistake for not including those weapons in my last video, I made sure to include them in this video. But enough of the mistakes from the last video. Let's get to the reason you all clicked this video. In this video, I'm going to be comparing 5 shotguns: the EP shotgun, Perfect Paradox, Zenith of Its Kind, Hawthorne's Field Forge shotgun, and Basilisk. In order to compare these weapons, we're going to look at their in-game stats, including mag size, ammo reserves, and RPM, and then discuss what the rapid fire archetype does to the RPM, and in the case of the Hawthorne's Field Forge shotgun, what full auto trigger system does to it. We'll then talk about the common buffs used to buff damage and how they work, as well as the damage caps involved, and then we'll dive into a theoretical perfect situation for strikes and discuss how each weapon stacks up against the others. Before we get into any of that, I want to make something very clear. For general play, casual striking, raiding with friends, the EP shotgun blows all of these weapons out of the water. It is 100% the best shotgun in the game when you aren't stacking buffs and you're running solo. Again, this video is focused on working with a coordinated team that you could trust to apply the buffs every time. If you are a solo player or just casually striking, just use the EP shotgun. So let's talk stats. To start off, we're going to discuss the EP shotgun, Perfect Paradox, and Zenith of Its Kind. These 3 shotguns all have rapid fire frame, all with 100 RPM on the tooltip and all with 65 impact. This means they all have the same base damage and all of them shoot at the same rate. However, due to the rapid fire frame, all 3 of these shotguns fire full auto, which increases the RPM way past what the in-game tooltip says. With rapid fire frame, these shotguns get an 80% buff to RPM, putting the actual RPM at 180, even though in-game it says 100, and this will play a huge role later in the video. For the EP shotgun, it has an 8-round mag with a total of 21 in the reserve, while Perfect Paradox and Zenith of Its Kind only have 7 in the mag. The Perfect Paradox, like the EP shotgun, has 21 total reserve. The Zenith of Its Kind is an oddball with 22. All 3 of these weapons shoot 3 rounds per second, with the EP shotgun taking 2.67 seconds to empty the mag, and Perfect Paradox and Zenith of Its Kind both taking 2.33 seconds to empty the mag. For Hawthorne's Field Forge shotgun, it has an in-game tooltip that says it has 90 RPM, but due to full auto trigger system, this jumps to 163. Meaning full auto trigger system in this specific case is 1.1% better, providing an 81.1% buff to RPM compared to the 80% buff rapid fire frame gives to the previous 3 shotguns. It, like the previous 3, also has 65 impact, meaning it once again has the same base damage. For mag size, it has 7, but is also an oddball with a total reserve of only 18. This in turn means Hawthorne's Field Forge shotgun will shoot 2.716 rounds per second and will take 2.58 seconds to empty the entire magazine. This brings us to the last shotgun on the list, Basilisk. This shotgun's in-game tooltip says it has 100 RPM, and even though it should shoot at 180 RPM like the other rapid-fire shotguns, it doesn't. It's bugged and has a different rapid-fire frame for some reason. This makes it the only shotgun in the group to have the actual RPM and the tooltip RPM match. Simply put, it has 100 RPM. Like all the others, it also has 65 impact, putting the base damage right in line with the others, and like the EP shotgun, it has 8 rounds in the mag and a total of 21 in the reserve. However, due to the different rapid fire frame or bug or whatever it is, it shoots only 1.66 bullets per second, and thus it takes 4.82 seconds to empty the entire magazine. Now, I know there was a lot of information to take in. I just bombarded you with a ton of information about 5 different shotguns, but all that information was required to make sure I got this one right. But we're not even close to being done, so let's keep going and talk about damage buffs and how they work. We're going to be focused on 6 different buffs: the EP shotgun's perk, Trench Barrel, the Tractor Cannon perk, Repulsor Force, Melting Point, yes, I know it's called Hammer Strike, but I'm calling it Melting Point because it's Melting Point, Empowering Rift, Heavyweight, and the Singes. These buffs are multiplicative. So, for example, if one buff is a 1.5 times multiplier and another buff is a 2 times multiplier, when stacked, they become a 3 times multiplier, not a 3.5 times multiplier. They are multiplied together, not added. Also, in addition, there's a cap on how much these buffs can stack, which sits at 6.18 times. So even if you stacked all 6 of these buffs together, which should be a 10.96875 times multiplier, it will always be reduced to 6.18 times, which also plays a role in the strike comparisons coming later in the video. Also, to quickly run through what multipliers each buff gives, Trench Barrel, Repulsor Force, and Melting Point are all 1.5 times multipliers, Empowering Rift is a 1.3 times multiplier, Heavyweight is a 2 times multiplier, and the Singes are a 1.25 times multiplier. So now, finally, let's compare these 5 shotguns. I'm going to remind you of a few things though. First, all these shotguns have the same impact, meaning they all have the same base damage. For this video, to give examples, we're going to pretend that when you crit with these shotguns, they will do 1,000 damage per shot with no buffs. This is simply to make the math simpler. I could give a more accurate number and say that they do 5,223 damage when you crit Brachion in the Pyramidion Strike while 385, but I felt 1,000 is an easier number to understand. The second thing to remember is the multiplier cap, meaning your damage multiplier will never go over 6.18 times. It can go under, but it'll never go over that. And the third thing is this is only your damage in a coordinated team applying the buffs every time with the appropriate strike modifiers if applicable. So how do these weapons stack up in strikes? To start, let's talk about everyone's favorite weapon, the EP shotgun. In order to hit the damage multiplier, you'll need Trench Barrel, Repulsor Force, Melting Point, and Heavyweight. This puts the multiplier at 6.75 times. We have a cap, so this is reduced to 6.18 times. If we use our test value of 1,000 damage per shot, with the multiplier, we'll be doing 6,180 damage. Emptying a full magazine allows this shotgun to do 49,440 damage at 18,540 damage per second, which will take 2.67 seconds to do. If we take into account the total reserve of 21, this shotgun can output 129,780 total damage without needing to pick up any ammo. And if you also have a perfect situation where you have a Warlock using Lunafaction boots, this shotgun can do that amount of damage in 7 seconds. Next is Perfect Paradox. Unlike the EP shotgun, which only needed 4 buffs to hit the multiplier cap, this shotgun will need 5, those being Repulsor Force, Melting Point, Empowering Rift, Heavyweight, and a Singe, which altogether provide a 7.3125 times multiplier, but we all know that'll drop to 6.18 times. If we again assume the test value of 1,000 damage per shot, we will again be doing 6,180 damage per shot with the multiplier active. However, this shotgun only has 7 in the mag, not 8, so emptying the mag will instead do 43,260 damage at 18,540 damage per second, and will take 2.33 seconds to do so. Once again, accounting for the total reserve of 21, this weapon can also output 129,780 total damage without needing to pick up any ammo, and like the EP shotgun, if you have a Lunafaction Warlock, it will take 7 seconds to do so. Third is Zenith of its Kind. This weapon is in the same boat as Perfect Paradox, requiring the same 5 buffs to hit cap, which allows this weapon to once again do 6,180 damage with the multiplier if we use that same 1,000 damage test value. And also like the Perfect Paradox, it has 7 rounds in the mag, putting the damage output to 43,260 damage at 18,540 damage per second. However, this weapon is an oddball and has 22 total reserve. This means this weapon has the ability to output 135,960 total damage without needing to pick up ammo. And if we have the Lunafaction Warlock, it can do that in 7.33 seconds. What's interesting about this weapon is that this means that not only can this weapon do 4.76% more total damage than the EP Shotgun and Perfect Paradox, but with that perfect Lunafaction Warlock situation, it does 18,548 damage per second, where the other two, the EP Shotgun and the Perfect Paradox, did 18,540 damage per second, meaning if you really min-max, you can squeeze out 8 extra damage per second with the Zenith of its kind. Fourth is Hawthorne's Field Forged Shotgun. This weapon also requires 5 buffs to hit the multiplier cap, and like the others, when the cap is hit, it can do 6,180 damage per shot, and also does a total of 43,260 damage due to it having 7 rounds in the mag. What makes this weapon different is that unlike the previous 3, which shoot at 180 RPM, Hawthorne's Field Forged Shotgun shoots at 163 RPM, meaning instead of doing 18,540 damage per second, it instead only does 16,785. Also making this weapon lack is its reserve. This weapon only has 18 total reserve, putting its maximum output at 111,240 damage. And once again, with the Lunafaction Warlock, it can do that amount of damage in 6.63 seconds. This leaves the final weapon, the Basilisk. This, like the others, requires 5 buffs to hit the cap and does 6,180 damage per shot. However, this weapon, due to its 8-round mag, can do 49,440 total damage if you empty it like the EP Shotgun. But, due to the bug with its rapid-fire frame, it will take 4.82 seconds to do so, which, when compared to the other shotguns in this list, is 2.15 seconds slower than the slowest of the previous 4. This puts this weapon's DPS at only 10,529 damage per second. That being said, it, like the other shotguns with 21 total reserve, can also do 129,780 total damage before needing ammo. However, with the Lunafaction Warlock and its bug rapid-fire frame, it would take 12.65 seconds to do so, which is 5.32 seconds slower than the slowest of the previous 4. So, how do these weapons stack up against each other in perfect situation strikes with a test value of 1,000 base damage per shot? For least number of buffs required to do maximum damage, in first place is the EP Shotgun, requiring 4, with the other 4 tied for second, requiring 5. For most damage per magazine, tied for first is the EP Shotgun and Basilisk, both with 49,440 damage, and the Perfect Paradox, Zenith of its Kind, and Hawthorne's Field Forged Shotgun tied for third at 43,260 damage per mag. When it comes to damage per second, the EP Shotgun, Perfect Paradox, and Zenith of its Kind are tied for first at 18,540 damage per second. In fourth, we have Hawthorne's Field Forged Shotgun at 16,785 damage per second. And in fifth is Basilisk with 10,259 damage per second. When it comes to total damage for emptying the entire ammo reserve, in first place is Zenith of its Kind with 135,960 total damage. Tied for second is the EP Shotgun, Perfect Paradox, and Basilisk at 129,780 total damage, and in fifth place is Hawthorne's Field Forged Shotgun at 111,240 total damage. And the last set of rankings is the Lunafaction Warlock total reserve damage per second, with Zenith of its Kind barely in first place with 18,548 damage per second. Tied for second is EP Shotgun and Perfect Paradox with 18,540 damage per second. In fourth is Hawthorne's with 16,785 damage per second. And in fifth is Basilisk with 10,259 damage per second. So overall, all this combined, how do these weapons stack up in perfect situation strikes when compared to each other? In order to do so, I'm going to take all the rankings that I just said and average them together, and like golf, the lowest score wins. So in first place, you guessed it, is the EP Shotgun. In second place is Zenith of its Kind. In third place is Perfect Paradox, in fourth place is the Basilisk, and in fifth place is Hawthorne's Field Forged Shotgun. Now, these rankings are subjective and shouldn't be taken as fact. This is for a perfect situation in strikes. If you take into account general play, EP Shotgun is gonna win hands down. And even in the raids, in perfect situations, the EP Shotgun does 50% more damage per shot with appropriate buffs compared to the others. In raids, it does 71.4% more damage when you empty a full magazine when compared to the worst of the others. It does 171.1% more damage per second when compared to the worst of the others, and it does 75% more total damage when you have a full reserve when compared to the worst of others. So for raids, in general play, it's the best. And even in strikes, it's the best. We always knew this. I know this wasn't very clear in my last video, but the point I was initially trying to make is that there are other shotguns that could be used until you get the EP Shotgun. I never wanted that video to make people think that the Basilisk is better than it is, or that the EP Shotgun wasn't good. I simply tried to provide other options to use in the meantime, but I did a poor job in doing that. Anyone who's a regular viewer of mine knows that I pride myself on being accurate and that I dislike the idea of clickbait. While I do put flashy titles and will regularly make bold claims with titles, I try to deliver on those bold claims and flashy titles. But I realized due to the inaccurate info in the last video and rushing to make that video, I became what I strive not to be. To anyone that is a regular viewer, I do want to apologize for being wrong. For anyone that saw that video and happened to stumble your way back to my channel, I hope this video makes up for how wrong I was in that video. And if this is your first time on my channel, welcome. But if you're curious on what I'm talking about, in the description is a link to the video where I spread wrong info to a lot of people. Regardless, I hope at the very least you found this video informative. And if you did, and you think I deserve it, hit the like button. And if you are new here, consider subscribing. I'd also like to ask you guys to check out my community Discord, where the idea for the initial video, albeit wrong, came from. So if you want to be part of that conversation, a link can be found in the description. As always, thank you for your continued support, but that's all I got for you guys today. So I'm gonna get out of here, say my name is Matt, and I'll see you guys next time.